Hi, my name is Neil Sanders. I am a fifth year senior business administration student from Weymouth, Massachusetts, which is about 20 minutes south of Boston. And today I am going to be talking to you guys about the conversations that I got to have with my grandmother and my little brother Michael. So I started off my interview with my grandmother, just kind of having a normal conversation and getting into some details and just kind of explaining to her what I was going to talk to her. So my grandmother, her name is Barbara. She's 89 years old and she has grown up and lived in Charlestown, Massachusetts her whole entire life, which is part of Boston. And our conversation, we started off talking about what part of her life we think that she's in. So her being her, she made a joke and said her young adult years, but we both know that she's in an elderly stage of her life. And while elderly kind of comes with some connotations of like slow development, like slow thinking, not being able to move as much, my grandmother is very spunky, 89-year-old. She feels like when we talk to about his, she feels like she doesn't really belong in her age group. She works full time. She walks 2 miles a day to and from church. She goes twice a day. She has a boyfriend. She enjoys going out for drinks with her friends on the weekends when she can. She can find the time. Um, and like I said, she has a lot of spunk. She's very upbeat. She's not slowing down cognitively. So I explained to my grandma the whole chronological lifespan and how you go from an adolescent to a young teen to a late teen to an early adult to a middle adult to an older adult and then eventually to an elderly adult. And she felt like she fell in the characteristic of an elderly adult, and that was just her age. She said that she still feels like she's a young adult going out and having fun and enjoying life and taking advantage of all the time that she has. So some of the facts that me and her had a conversation about were how the average lifespan has actually gone up and people are starting to live longer. And her reaction to that was one that most people would have. She finds any time that you have on this earth precious and you need to really take advantage of the time that you have. And then another thing that we got into was the difference between health span and lifespan, where people might live for 10 years past the point where they're like cognitive and upbeat and are really enjoying life. And she's extremely grateful that she's lived 89 years being extremely healthy, having her wits, and being able to stay active and keep herself in good health. When discussing nature versus nurture, and I explained to her what both of those mean, to her, she felt like she fell into the nurture aspect a little bit more. Um, Her family and her parents came here from Ireland before she was born, moved to Boston, and had her and all of her siblings. And she felt like she became the human she is because of the surroundings she grew up in the cities in the early 1900s, and how that really shaped her into the human that she is today. And while she agrees with the nature aspect of things, she felt that she would be a different person if she grew up in a different time frame or a different location. So when I asked her about her stage of life, one of the questions that we were asked was to ask if they were experiencing any midlife crisis, ageism, or gender biases. She didn't really experience any of those. We kind of got to talk about how she was as a mother and how she felt her responsibilities were to be home and take care of the kids and make sure that they all were fed and the house was taken care of, while my grandfather worked at the Navy Yard. She said he would work from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. every single day, Monday to Friday. And that left her a lot of time to have a full-time job as a mother. And that's something that she said is the greatest gift in the world, to be a mother. Nothing compares to it. Advice she would give to younger people or people entering her age of life. She said just to appreciate every moment that you have with the people that you spend your time with, whether it's family or friends. She said herself, you never know how much time you have left, so appreciate every morning when you get the chance to live another day. And to me, that's something that stood out to me in our conversation, because you never know when that time might come for you. And especially being at an elderly age where if you get sick, things can change pretty quickly. And she said that if she could stand in front of 1,000 people and say something, she would say appreciate the little things that you get to do every day, like making yourself a cup of coffee or enjoying a good meal. Things like that sometimes we can be taken for granted. And that's the little things in life that when you can't do for yourself, those are the little things that you'll miss. Another question that I wanted to ask my grandmother that we kind of touched on in class is, what challenges do they face at this point in their life, and if there are any? So when I asked my grandmother this question, she responded to me with, I don't have any challenges, just some things I wish I could still do. So like I said, she's a very healthy and energetic person, but she has a hard time, going outside and taking care of her flower pots or her garden or mowing her lawn. So those are little things that she found joy in that she can't do anymore just due to her age. Um, and another thing that she is having kind of a challenge with is how she wants to spend the rest of her time. While that sounds kind of like morbid or upsetting, she kind of thinks of it in a positive way where she wants to go on vacations and spend time with like me or the rest of her grandchildren and her children herself. Um, it's something that she really has put a lot of thought into, and how every day she wakes up and tries to think of something that she appreciates doing and something that she wants to do. All in all, the conversation I got to have with my grandmother went extremely well. And it was something that I don't get to do much with her when seeing her on holidays, because one-on-one time is hard. And I got to have a conversation with her that was pretty eye-opening from certain points of view for me. And it's something that made me feel like I want to do more and appreciate that time that she has left here with me and the rest of my family. The next person that I got the chance to interview was my little brother, Michael. My little brother, Michael, is 19. He is a full-time nursing student at UMass Boston, and he still lives at home with my mom in Weymouth, Massachusetts. Hobbies that my brother has, he's very into tech. He's very into sports, and he works full-time, or part-time, I should say, while he's not being a student. But in the summer, he's full-time at a lumber yard in the town next to us. And that's something that he got to start this summer. When I explained the stages of life to my brother, he determined that he was in the young adult stage, which I agree. As a adult at 19, he's starting to feel the pressures of living at home and needing to find his own job and have his own source of income, while also balancing payments like for a car or for school, and taking out loans and experiencing some of those early adulthood challenges that you have to learn how to do on your own. When he was explaining his reasoning for being a young adult to me, he said that while he is starting to become more financially stable on his own and feeling more responsible and taking on more responsibilities as an adult, he feels as though he's still not ready to move out of his house yet and kind of go out on his own and face the world and deal with all the things that a middle adult or an older adult has to deal with. I explained to him some of the characteristics of his age, and the ones that I brought up to him were having a firmer identity and really understanding who you are as a person and not letting outside sources kind of create this persona that you put on when in public. I explained to him about broader interests and how you start to find things that you didn't find in high school or grade school more interesting as an adult as your personality grows with you. And then another thing that we talked about for a little while was just really not caring anymore about outside sources. Whether that's your friends or family or opinions from people that you don't really know that, might have affected who you were as a person before. But now he's at that point where he really feels that those people that might have a certain opinion about him or how he dresses or what he enjoys for hobbies, he doesn't really care, and he enjoys what he enjoys, what makes him happy. One thing I learned talking to him about his life and his age is that certain young adults take this time of their life completely differently. And for me, during that stage, was very independent, and I didn't really have a hard time moving away from my house and going to college. And I always had a job throughout high school, so that wasn't new to me. But for him, he kind of got some help throughout high school. He didn't have to work as much, and he's living at home instead of moving to school. So that's stuff that he's trying to, really branch out and get himself to go do. Something I learned as well was how immense that pressure can be on some kids, and how it can either make or break you at this time in your life. If you don't have a good experience right off the bat, it might scare you right back into your childhood home. Or if you have a great experience, it might give you the confidence, try a little bit more personal freedom and do things that you might think that you're ready for, but you might not. Something that he really related with is having to, take out loans for school and have a car payment. And that's stuff that is brand new to him from high school to college, where my parents always told us, as soon as you go to school, you have to take out the loan if you want to go, and you're going to take over your car payments, and that's that. For me and my siblings, we didn't really have any, like teenage crisis or felt attacked because of our age or gender biases. We knew and were very confident in who we were as children, as our parents raised us to be, and that's something that we take pride in. And, believing in who we are as people, and really knowing that from a young age. After we discussed, age and gender and things like that, it was kind of a short conversation, but we moved into some advice that he would have for people or kids and seniors in high school that are starting that transition into early adulthood. And he said, I'll quote him, he said, "Don't worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow will be figured out when you wake up the next day. And if that's the plan, then that's the plan." Not really hearing my brother talk serious a good amount of the time. It was nice to hear something like that from him, because it makes me feel good as an older brother, where he's good and I don't have to worry about him. And the situation that he's in his life and where he is mentally and physically is in a good spot. When I asked him why he gave that advice, he said because a lot of kids his age, they're worried about where they're going to be or what the next class is or their test in 2 weeks. And he said that although it is responsible to worry and think about those things, he says worrying about them isn't going to change the outcome. He said you need to prepare yourself and just be in the best place possible for whatever it is that you need to get done. And that's something that I thought of, and something that I thought I could take into account for my own life myself. Some of the challenges that my brother Michael faces at this stage in his life, he said, were money. Makes sense. Balancing time with friends and family, and then school. So he feels kind of guilty that he goes out on the weekends and sees his friends a little bit more than he probably sees our parents. And then how he balances all that time socially with his responsibilities with school. Figuring out what he wants to do for his occupation after college, even though he has 4 years to figure that out. I remember at that time too, I was very stressed out about what I thought I was going to do. And for the nature versus nurture conversation, he also, like my grandmother, thought that he fell more into the nurture side of things. He said it was because of his childhood and how our parents kind of let him be who he wanted to be, and how he didn't feel any pressure to do the things that me or my sisters did. He kind of got to do what he wanted, and my parents were very supportive with that. He said that the town that we grew up in kind of helped him become more responsible at a younger age, where he felt like he was able to goof off in school, but he had to make that decision where, do I want to goof off or do I want to become a good student, and do I want to do well in school? And he got to make that decision for himself, and he chose to be responsible and do the right thing and really take care of himself so that he could be in the position that he is in now. Some things that I learned with the conversations that I had with my grandmother and my brother. We'll start first with my grandmother. Talking about age with somebody who's on the older end or the back end of their life is pretty tough because it can kind of be a sad conversation. But the way she was extremely positive throughout the whole thing and, talked to me from the heart, but also had fun with it and understood that her life is at that point where she wants to really absorb and take in everything that she can and all the time that she has left. That's something that I learned, is that no matter what, you kind of have all control of the life you want to live and what you plan to do with the time that you have. Whether you have 80 years or 10 years or 3 weeks left in your life, it's all about what you make of it and how you treat those days. I think psychologists are very accurate in identifying and classifying the age groups and what age group kind of is dealing with internally and externally. From the young adult, moving out and becoming financially stable, to the older adult where, you might have a wife and kids, and as a man, what you feel, or as a mother and a woman, what you feel responsible for, and the burdens that you have in your life, along with trying to live a life of your own. I think that in the book and in our discussions that we posted and responded to other people with, we all learned a lot about how those times in our life can greatly affect you positively and negatively. Both my grandmother and my brother are at times in their life where they're very appreciative for what they have. With my brother, being in school and appreciating the opportunity that he has, and being able to, have a job and live at home and have help and a support system around him. And my grandmother being 89 years old and feeling very appreciative for what she has had in her life and what she has down the road, but also, thinking ahead and knowing that she has been here for 89 years, and to live even that long is a blessing in itself. So every day, both of them, are kind of just very grateful for what they have in their lives. And if I was to explain some of the differences between them, it kind of goes along with, time and age, where my grandmother, she's kind of soaking in everything and wishing she had more time, while my brother isn't really appreciating the college time, and he wants to just skip right through school, have a job, and be financially stable to be able to do what he wants. So while they're both very appreciative for the time of their life that they're in, it's the time of their lives that they're in that make them kind of wish that they had more than they really do have. A wrap for what I have on my video. I want to say I'm very appreciative for the summer class that I was given the opportunity to take, and I enjoyed every discussion response. The papers really opened my eyes to things that I didn't really have thoughts about before, and I feel like I've taken a lot from this class that I've been able to apply to my life in itself. Thank you very much. Have a good day.